Hey people, Wall here with Wallcraft, and today I've got something very, very special that I've been working on. Um, so let's get right into it. As you can see right in front of you, this is the Goblin race. Yes, in fact, it is a playable race in Wallcraft. Originally, goblins were intended to be a playable race in World of Warcraft. They never made the final cut, so Blizzard simply left them off the table and didn't actually implement them until Cataclysm. All the information for them is in the game files. This is the original Goblin models, as you can see. No backporting required. They have full animation kits. Pretty much everything that you could want from the class and the race is here. Currently, goblins are not able to be selected from the main menu because that would require a custom client. So I've thought of a few clever ways to actually implement them in the game without requiring a modified client and simply sticking to the Wallcraft patch. So as you'll see here, the goblins dancing around, they have several different class options available to them. But as it stands, goblins, the way that you unlock them in Wallcraft is by becoming exalted with all 4 Steamweedle cartel factions. Upon doing so, you'll be able to speak with the NPC in Booty Bay, and he will give a prompt. You click on it, and it will create the character for you. So when you exit to the main menu, you'll see your goblin. I do plan on creating a custom goblin background for the loadout. I had to use a pre-existing one, so I just chose the orc one, as it seemed most appropriate at least. And of course, that wouldn't be all, just showing one thing, so I'll show you another. This is the Dwarf Mage, and this actually was in the game during Alpha. You were able to make Dwarf Mages. This one was actually a real issue to make available. Essentially, the way that you add classes is by defining them in the databases and the DVC, etc. For Dwarf, it actually exists in the vanilla client. All of the files are all set up for the Dwarf Mage. But when Alpha ended and Vanilla began, Blizzard decided to just create a hack to prevent you from creating a Dwarf Mage. It's really unfortunate because making a workaround was actually creating an entirely new class that's known as the Dwarf Mage class. It's the exact same mirror as a normal mage, but let me show you on the loadout here. Selecting Dwarf, you can see it's got the icon here. The client is hard-coded to prevent this icon from showing up for a Dwarf Mage, so even if you have everything all set up correctly, you're not able to actually make one. Luckily though, like I said, just by enumerating a brand new class, the Dwarf Mage class, you are able to bypass that. So this is mirroring dwarfs. I did think of another way that might be a little bit more conducive, simply because I really don't want issues later on with item creation. Basically, if you have an item that is mage only, it will say mage twice. It'll say classes mage and mage. That's because of the Dwarf Mage class that's assigned to it. So I did think of a different way, actually, is just by switching around Warlock and Dwarf in the databases. It's a lot more work to do that, because basically anything that is particular to a mage or a warlock needs to be swapped around in the files. Some things that are shared between a mage and a warlock wouldn't need to be swapped. We're talking like Ironweave robe set that's usable by priest, mage, and warlock. That because the classes are right next to each other in the enumerations, they wouldn't have to be swapped. But everything else, basically, that is specific to mage or specific to warlock would need to be switched. I'll probably end up going forward with that, though, just for the sake of a little bit cleaner UI. I'd really hate to see mage appear twice in the listings. So that's currently the plan. That's something that we're working on. Like I said, you're not going to be able to simply select Goblin from the main menu. Any new races, any new classes in Wallcraft, I'd like them to pertain to the game of vanilla. So something like the Goblin, which is within the game files, obviously that's, you know, a very vanilla thing. But in order to unlock any new classes or new races, there's going to be prerequisites. Some people have asked about Death Knights because there are definitions for the Death Knight class in the game files, but obviously they didn't get added until Wrath of the Lich King. For Death Knights, the way that you'll unlock a Death Knight will be simply by completing Naxxramas and then receiving the urn from Kel'Thuzad, his phylactery. And when you turn in the quest for the phylactery, you'll be given an option to sacrifice your character, turning him into a Death Knight. So that would give you an option to essentially switch your class after completing Naxxramas into a Death Knight. And that's, again, a permanent thing. You're sacrificing the character to turn it into a Death Knight, so it's definitely a big trade-off. But, of course, that's it's very thematic, and I believe it's a much better implementation than anything Blizzard had done, especially, you know, the Wrath of the Lich King implementation for Death Knight, where you have a character that's level 60 or above, and then you can just get a free level 55. Like, that is a terrible implementation, in my opinion. I think the sacrificing your character to become a servant of the Lich King is much more thematic to the World of Warcraft universe. So, Death Knight is a long ways away, but I figured I'd just throw that out there. In terms of the Goblin, though, the Goblin has a few playable classes. You can play as Warrior, Rogue, Mage, and Warlock, which is essentially a mirror of Gnomes. If you notice, Gnomes, the exact same classes, and those are the most thematic to a Goblin faction. Now, people ask, well, is Goblin Alliance or is Goblin Horde? Goblin on Wallcraft is a third faction. Third factions are their own unique identity. Goblins are neutral with both Alliance and both Horde, and they are of the Steamweedle Cartel faction. So essentially, if you are a Goblin player in World of Warcraft, you can join up and play with either Alliance or Horde. If you want to go raid with a Horde guild, you can go raid with a Horde guild, and 20 minutes later, after the raid ends, you can go join a different raid with an Alliance guild. You can walk into Stormwind, you can walk into Orgrimmar. You're neutral with both Alliance and Horde. You're able to use their auction houses, you're able to trade. It's very, very fitting thematically for a Goblin to play both sides and essentially be a neutral party that profiteers off of both sides. So Goblin has some excellent gameplay. In fact, we'll log in and take a look here. This is my level 60 Goblin Warrior, and you can see that the Goblin has full animation kits, looks just like a class, plays just like a class, just like every other race. It's very, very thematic to it. Do a little bit of DPS on the target dummy. And we'll pop all the cooldowns. I don't have my bars all set up here, but let's dump some cooldowns. Go ham on this thing. Oh, dodge right on that last one. Beautiful. Yeah, it feels good, man. It feels really good. So, we'll see that we can go to Stormwind. You know, everything is neutral, everything is yellow. It's still working for getting the Horde set up, but we can go to Orgrimmar. And everything... Oop. Orgrimmar. And everything is yellow, everything is neutral. It actually gives an option to attack Horde because I still have yet to fully set up the factions, but they're neutral at the time. So, as you can see, we're just walking around, nothing bothers us. We'd be able to walk into the auction house and buy stuff from the Horde auction house and then take it over to the Alliance auction house and sell it for a profit. Typical Goblin fashion. The loading screen, as I said, is going to be custom redone, and it'll be, you know, big piles of gold. The Goblin standing in the middle of it. Look really thematic to Goblin. It's going to take a little bit more work, though, so... Luckily, the glues for the loading screen for character selections can be modified. No issues there. And I was sitting there trying to figure out, how to implement the loading screens because I was getting just a blue box on the character select, and I thought, well, that's probably the trade-off they're going to have to endure, is that you're not going to actually see the character on the loading screen. But luckily I figured it out. It's a really janky method that Blizzard uses where it just references the file by name, essentially, within the LUA, or XML, I should say. So, it's pretty funny. But yeah, so very exciting, very exciting. Very fun race to play because you can play both factions and have some fun playing both sides for your own benefit. Very interesting. Yeah, wow. And of course, there are new races planned. I have the Ogre race planned. It's not implemented yet. Not yet on the dev server. I just have to reboot. It'll be there, but I'm still working on stuff. So I got a lot of work ahead of me, but this is going to be the next major content patch. Of course, players are asking about hardcore. I'm still looking into hardcore and getting that all set up. Wallcraft hardcore mode is very unique in that when you die in hardcore, you simply don't lose your character. You simply lose all of your items and gear that you're currently in possession of in your bags. Stuff in the bank, of course, is safe. So there's a huge meta revolving around character progression through raiding content on a hardcore. You're restricted from trading and using the auction house in Wallcraft hardcore. So you have to earn everything yourself, and everything that you're carrying is at risk. So it creates a very fun meta in that your deaths do not mean the end. They just simply mean the next step in the journey of rebuilding and re-gearing. You have to be very careful with what you're risking at the time. You need to make sure that you are prepared to lose anything that you're carrying, obviously. But you can always rebuild. You can always stash away your good stuff and just wear garbage crafted gear. Can't even really call crafted gear garbage because it's been optimized in Wallcraft to be, much better. Crafted gear is obviously much better across the board, but you'll definitely want to strive to make gains without risking too much. But obviously the gear is there so you can increase your power level, especially coming from raid content. You'll be wanting to, progress through the raids, obviously with the best gear that you have, but taking as low a risk as possible. So optimizing for death is much more of a meta in Wallcraft hardcore. War mode is still a long ways away. It's going to take a lot of work to get it to where I want it to be. Guild bases, additional resources, items dropped on death, making sure that everything works smoothly. But very excited, big steps here. So I think that's about all I've got for today. There's tons of work going on behind the scenes to make this all possible, so I've been slaving away for the past 3 days at this, getting it all set up. Still a lot more work to do in the coming days, but slowly but surely getting there, and very excited. Very, very excited. Take care, stay classy, and until next time.